Well, many organisations now in the habit of conducting investigations to look into conduct or behavioural issues in their organisations, but investigations are known to be a very cumbersome exercise and can often lead to extensive delays in concluding an overall process. So what should organisations be doing differently? Andrew spoke earlier to Joydeep Hor from People and Culture Strategies for his insights.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of reasons for that, couple of drivers, Andrew. One has been that there's an increasing weight placed on organisations having appropriate whistleblowing infrastructure, and that's often a catalyst for a lot of these complaints being made into organisations, often received at board level or at senior executive level, and that warrants an investigation. Sometimes the organisation doesn't really have a choice because their policies and perhaps even legislation might require that they take steps to look into that. But the other main driver for the spike in investigations, and when I say spike, I think this has been a trend that has been on the increase probably for the better part of the last decade, is the prevalence of complaints made internally alleging sexual harassment and bullying, in amongst probably other things, but certainly they'd be the two most commonly cited behavioural triggers or alleged behavioural triggers for people making complaints. And we know that sexual harassment in particular over the last couple of years has been brought into sharp focus with the Respect at Work inquiry. And one of the things that was very commented on in a lot of detail in that particular process was that the investigation process of a lot of organisations left a little bit to be desired. So there's heightened awareness of this. There's a heightened sense of organisations needing to be seen to be responsive, and investigations are often the first course of action for them.
Are we seeing these investigations handled internally, or is there a preference for an independent adjudicator, if you like?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, because where I'm seeing organisations tripping themselves up is they're not spending a lot of time at the front end of processing a complaint or a matter that has been brought to their attention in the way that they should, and asking a lot of threshold questions. And some of them are just either immediately gravitating to an external investigator, and if you do that, there's going to be time and cost ramifications of doing that. And the time one's probably the most critical, because often that process could take a number of weeks, if not months, and that's not unheard of. And of course, that means that the impact on the individuals involved is going to be quite significant. So the opportunity is definitely there for organisations to just consider what has been complained of, or what is the allegation. How bad is it, even taken at its highest? And is this something that really does need to go external, or is this something that we can capably deal with in-house, knowing that we're probably going to get a quicker and better result organisationally if we do that?
And Joydeep, what warrants an investigation? I mean, how trivial can it be?
Well, this is a good point. I mean, there's a mindset amongst a lot of employees in organisations that making a complaint because they have some awareness or perception that it's going to lead to an investigation is a form of retribution or vindictive conduct on their part towards someone who they feel has engaged in inappropriate conduct towards them. In other words, if I make this complaint, my employer is going to have to investigate it. That's going to be uncomfortable for the person against whom that I'm making the complaint, and that's enough for me because that's my form of achieving justice. Now, it's probably not an appropriate way for people to be thinking about it, but absolutely that is rightly or wrongly a mindset. So it's about how an organisation processes. And I always like to advise clients that, look, you should only be investigating matters where the alleged conduct involves a breach of the law, or involves a breach of your organisation's policies and procedures, or somehow otherwise has the potential to bring your organisation into serious disrepute. If it doesn't fall into one of those categories, you don't need to be investigating it. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be completely ignoring something that has been the subject of complaint, but you can perhaps deal with it in a number of other ways. And I'm often saying to clients, why don't you just ask the person who's raised this issue what it is that they want? And maybe that what they want is for certain behaviours to stop, or it might be that they just want to be able to have a forum where they can raise a grievance or issue with another person, where they might need some support or a mediator. These are alternatives to investigations that have to be considered a lot more actively. And what I'm seeing is that organisations, whether driven by fear or apprehension that if they don't investigate they're going to be compromised, are gravitating far too easily and far too readily towards conducting investigations.
So what do you think these organisations need to do, perhaps, to change their culture and to handle these investigations?
So I do think that this front-end consideration is really important, and also sending a message that, of course, as an organisation that takes responsibilities seriously, legal responsibilities, ethical responsibilities, if there are serious allegations that are made, or if the allegations that are made involve a very senior person within our organisation, we will in all likelihood probably have that matter investigated, and depending on the severity or the seniority of the person, it's likely that that investigation from an optics point of view should be conducted externally. However, it doesn't mean that every time we hear that someone is aggrieved or someone might make a complaint about something, that we are going to tie up resources, be they internal or external, in conducting an investigation. And so if you start to socialise that message, what you do is you start to condition the way in which your employees are going to start handling matters. And it might actually empower them to know that, well, look, just because I make a complaint doesn't mean an investigation is going to be conducted. I'm encouraged or urged to deal with matters differently instead of making complaints, or if I do make a complaint, understand that the process that's going to ensue is not necessarily going to be one of great formality and inquisition, and these are very stressful for all people involved. So there's a lot of things that organisations can do, some of which I think are very low-hanging fruit.